Welcome everybody, Tech Breakfast. We're kind of excited today. We're going to have Mike and it seems like a crew of people to talk about is technology and what Radar's got going. So do you have any other things before we jump into it, Barry?
Oh no. I'm good to go. I
Okay,
just here.
take it away, Mike. We want you to introduce us to everybody who've got going.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tony. It's really great to be here, joining the Tech Breakfast. Excited to talk about things. And, I understand you had Paul Wolf on last episode talking about 9,000 things that he's making that are crazy technology and
That would be
wonderful
Paul.
things. Yeah, great guy. But what we're talking about is just we make one really critical piece of gear. It's a converter. We've sort of dabbled with a variety of things in the past, primarily multi-channel recording gear. And, people have known Radar, people love it historically. But we've been really asked for a variety of things in the past. It was a 24 channel hard disk recorder, so it was similar to a tape machine. You knew it well. Replaced 2-inch tape in a lot of studios before they eventually went to Pro Tools. So as a 24 channel multi-track recorder, we were asked, can you give us more channels? Can you do something that can we just get the cards that would work with a DAW or Pro Tools or HD or that kind of thing? And we tried to make a computer called Radar Studio a number of years ago, but we really realized that we're not a computer company. And so, instead of trying to make everyone think that they could work our way, we finally came up with a solution that does that. It basically puts our 2-channel, 8-channel cards that are familiar in the back of a larger Radar, as people know, but now it's in like a half rack unit called a Radar converter. So now we chose Dante as a platform for a couple of reasons, and there are real benefits to it. I mean, we were known for our clocking, but we found that when we put our old Radar cards in a Dante chassis like this, the clocking was actually better, a better signal to noise ratio. It allowed us to network, up to 192 I/O if you want, and it also works with HD systems in a variety of ways. So over the years, we've had a number of different amazing clients in some incredible studios, and what we wanted to do was build something that could go into this ecosystem that would work with HD, that would work just plugging straight into it. If latency isn't like a super concern, you could just plug in with an Ethernet cable and use it for mastering or mixing. So with that said, I think the better people to explain how you use it, and that Dante isn't as sort of this hurdle that people keep thinking. It'd be great to talk to users out there who use it in a professional setting and have gotten over that Dante threshold and realize it's not as scary as people think. So the first person I thought we would talk to is one of the first people who bought Radar converters, and that's Aaron Navezi from the Bunker Studio. So I'd like to introduce him and get him to explain his setup and how he approached it, and just sort of walk us through what happens at the Bunker.
Hi everyone, nice to see you all. So yeah, I'm one of the owners at the Bunker Studio. We've been around since about 2006 in New York City. We're in Brooklyn, and we have about.
Fan.
Oh, sorry. Somebody was saying something.
Dave, I think your mic is open. Can you close it for us? Go ahead, Aaron. Go ahead.
Thanks, Tony. Okay, yeah, so Bunker's in New York. About 2011, we moved to a bigger facility. built it out, and we currently have 5 rooms. There's two tracking rooms, one big tracking room, one sort of smaller tracking room, a dedicated mix room, a dedicated mastering room, and then we have a rental room that our mixer works out of. So we've been using Radar. I had a Radar 24 back at our old studio from about 2008. Always loved it. That was before we moved to Pro Tools. That was kind of our main digital format. So I was very familiar with the Radar sound and the workflow. Always loved that sort of tape workflow. So I had that, and that lasted us for a long time. Fast forward to in the new studio, I did try the Radar studio unit with based on the PC because I was really missing using the Radar sound. But modern workflow requires micro editing and access to plugins and all those sort of things that clients sort of expect. Playlists, we use Pro Tools, of course. So when the converter came out, or Mike got in touch and let me know about the converter coming out, we were very interested, and we ended up putting in. We started off at about 40 channels in our mix room, connected to an SSL, and we used that for a couple of years. We had a different set of converters in there, but the Radar is kind of won out sound quality wise. We were using an HD rig, so we had to sort of figure out this whole Dante conversion thing that I'm sure we'll be talking about a bit more as everybody chimes in on what their setups are. But now we have 64 channels for the converter boxes. I think that adds up to 64 channels connected to kind of a hybrid setup. So to get into sort of some details on the way we have it set up, we have a custom summing mixer that's 8 stereo, so 16 channels in and out, and we've got 16 of the channels dedicated to that. We have 24 channels as hardware inserts in Pro Tools. We have, what else? I made notes of this. We have 8 channels dedicated to monitor path, print path, because we printing analog mixes a lot of the time still, even though it's sort of a hybrid setup. And then we have about 16 channels dedicated to hardware effects that are kind of most used, like Lexicon 480, Bricasti M7s, PCM 41s, a couple of plate lines, all that sort of stuff. So we can kind of always get to those elements without using our hardware inserts. And it's an HDX rig converted with 2 of the Focusrite HDR, whatever they're called, HD32s or HD32R, I think is what they're called. So that gets us the HD functionality still. And I know we were talking a little bit before we came on recording about, tracking with latency, and we don't do a lot of tracking in that room, so I haven't really got a lot of experience to speak to tracking latency, but, people do a few overdubs in there, and it never seems to be a problem. And, when we did set up the Radar, because we're using the Dante thing, we had to figure out the hardware insert, offset. So my partner John sort of calculated that and did some figuring with that, and since we got that all figured out, since it's not just an HD rig that converts automatically calculates that for you, that was one of the small hurdles that we had to sort of navigate to get the hardware inserts working perfectly. But since we've done that, it's been stable, sounds great, gives us a ton of I/O. The Dante thing, I think one of the questions was how much do we know about Dante before we jumped in on this, and how do we feel about it now? And I knew very little to nothing about Dante, so it was a big learning curve getting the thing up and running. We definitely had some steps to figure out, especially just finding the right Ethernet hub. So once we found that, that was a big step forward, because it was a little finicky with finding the right Ethernet hub, since we're using so many channels of I/O. We had to connect a lot of stuff together. But once that got figured out, the system has been very, very solid. I have a couple of quibbles with the Dante controller software, and I wish maybe it integrated with Pro Tools a little bit more in terms of switching sample rates, and maybe somebody who knows Dante better than I will know better ways to do things than we do it. But overall, it's been great, and obviously sound quality is paramount for us, so the Radar wins on that. I think that's it for me.
I think also when you're talking about the hurdles of getting up and running, in those early days, I was trying to do tech support as well. So we'll be talking about introducing Mark Kochi later on in this conversation, but he's able to get guys up and running in like half an hour. So it's like way better support now that we've got him on board. So
Yeah,
I wish we'd had him in those early days to sort everything out for you a little smoother.
Yeah, no, we were
Aaron,
definitely jumping
but
in
it
on the
sounds
very
like
early train, you know, and once we figured this stuff out, though, it's been great. It was just, you know, I think we were all just trying to figure out the best ways to integrate things into a system like we
So
had.
do you want to talk a little bit, Mark, about what the setup is so that everybody knows what we're talking about here? And Mike, do you have, because my box is over at Barry's place. So you want to show it while everybody's there on screen? And Mark, talk a little bit about the setup, about what you need, please. So
Sure.
everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. Um, Quickly, I'll say my background. I started on Radar 2s a long time ago, so I was a part of the radar world. And at the time, I was working as a location mixer for television. And Maddie was the thing at that point. We started getting into Maddie for multi-channel. And then when Dante came to be, it was kind of part of my workflow. And everything we did was cross-point routers. And so when I came in to work with IZ, it was kind of a no-brainer because it was very natural to me. But I knew it wasn't natural to people who are working strictly in engineering and music and recording. And this is a whole new way to interface. So trying to keep it as dumbed down for you don't need to be an IT guy to work in Dante, but it seems that way when you first look at it. So that's been my goal, is to say, okay, there's a couple key things to set up. Once it's set up, like Aaron was saying, it's pretty much plug and play. And there's a bunch of different ways you can set it up. Mike mentioned if you just have a mix room and you're doing no hardware inserts, no outboard, like Aaron says with 480 or something, you can literally plug your Ethernet port into your radar converter and go, because you're not dealing with a latency issue for tracking. When you start getting into setting up in a more involved studio, whether it be an HDX rig or a native rig, where you're going to go Thunderbolt, there is always going to be another piece of hardware involved. Lately, the best options we found are, if you're in the Thunderbolt world, is the DAD Core 256 or the Focusrite Red 8 line. Both excellent units. And if you're going to do HD still, my parents say the HD 32R or the Avid Matrix 2. So all these things require you to put something between the radar converter and your system. The audio is traveling to and from the computer via Digilink or Thunderbolt, and the interface is talking to the converter via the Dante network. So what I usually do with a new client is we'll get a phone call, and I use a desktop sharing. I use AnyDesk, and get them to download a couple pieces of software, Dante controller. If they're not using an interface, they need Dante Virtual Sound Card. If they're using a DAD interface, they need Deadman. And once those pieces of software on your computer, like Mike said, pretty much 30 minutes of and walking you through it, not just doing it for you, but showing you the ins and outs of the routing, and people are up and running, and it never changes until you add to it. It's funny because I'll get a unit sent to me that's going to go back out to a demo like the one I sent to you, Tony. And so I'll go through and clear all the subscriptions, but the Dante network remembers everything. And so the unit that came from a studio in Nashville going out to you still comes up showing what it had, because if it went back to Nashville, you'd plug it in and it would just reconnect. It remembers the network, which is pretty great. Aaron, you mentioned about the sample rate change. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but that's So the sample rate change, Dante does not carry that information to change it like the session when the session changes, but all the interfaces do. So whether it be an Avid interface or a DAD interface with Focusrite, the interface will follow your sample rate change. But the radar converter needs to be changed in Dante controller. And that's not an IZ thing. That's whether you hung anybody's Dante converter off there. The information is just not part of the Dante code. And I agree with you that I wish Audinate would figure out a way that could talk, because that's one of the few things that people say, well, but it's a matter of, it's a 30-second change you make. And so overall, I think it's a bit daunting until you can sit with somebody, which is what I try to do, and say, no, this isn't that hard. I worked with Piper on a problem she had once, and I said to her that I said it's just a second set of eyes and ears, and I feel that's the way that most of the people I talk to know far more about the industry than I do. But I can be the person with the Dante information and say, okay, let me show you how I would do this, and you don't have to look at it by yourself, and then we are up and running in 30 minutes.
That's great. Mark, I think the only device we haven't really talked about, you sort of touched on it, is the Matrix and the Matrix 2. Matrix 2 now has Thunderbolt connectivity as well as, you know, all the HD sort of elements, but we've had real success with people just getting into a Matrix or a Matrix 2 and just plugging it into the Dante port on their Matrix. And
yeah, and the Matrix
I think
Studio
that's probably the easier setups.
Yeah, there's the Matrix Studio also, which has some features people don't need, but it's also in that same family. And the Matrix Studio does the 64 channels up to 192 with the onboard Dante. And I believe the Matrix 2 now does that as well. The Matrix 1 would only do 32.
So
But all
you
that
have to have a Dante card. You have to have clearly the half rack interface from Radar. And then what else do you need?
Well, you don't need a Dante. You need the half rack unit, the converter. And then depending on what your studio config is, if you are a room that's tracking and mixing, you need something between the radar converter and your computer that's going to serve as an interface, similar to if you were building an Avid room and you said, okay, I'm going to either get an HDIO, I'm going to get a MADIO, whatever happens to be your interface. That's the way that your computer, the Pro Tools, excuse me, would talk to your hardware. So this is just whatever box you choose to put between the converter and your DAW. And that being said, too, when I first started doing this, I basically acquired every DAW there is to try to figure out, okay, does it all work? And so far, I haven't found anything that doesn't. I even had a guy recently who's using DaVinci Resolve, the video editing software, which has a Fairlight DAW on it, is his main DAW, and working great with the converter. So
There are questions in the chat.
Even
People
the
asking about the
UAV
price.
one. Sorry?
There
Someone
are
in the
questions
chat asked
about pricing.
Well, the chassis itself is 2,800, and then each 8-channel card varies in price. So the Classic 96 cards, which are more, they take transients more like tape. So if you hit them the same way you would with a tape machine, you get that warm feeling. So people who are, you know, well versed in that side of things love the Classic 96 cards. And then they're 1,900 a piece, and then the Ultra Nyquist 8-channel cards are 25, basically 24.99. That's the pricing of it. But you know, one of the things why we built this is because we keep hearing stories about people who have their radar sitting in the corner and not being able to let it go, you know, because they just loved it. And this is what it is. You could start with, you know, one box, pull 2 cards out of an old radar, and start with 16 channels, which, you know, is that'll get you started on just about anything, really. So And part of the thing too, like Mark does a great job. I mean, he's a godsend to me because, you know, I'm not as obviously as technical and experienced, having, you know, he's done a lot of broadcast work and studio work, and he knows his way in and out of everything from a technical standpoint. He was also an iTask repair place. So a lot of places in the States, you know, we're in Canada, you know, if they want their stuff repaired, Mark's always done a great job of keeping those older units going. So yeah, I'll definitely get to that. I think what I'd like to frame though is, so you were asking, how do you set it up? What does it work like? Like the great thing is that we've got a number of people here today who are going to explain how their system works. So as Aaron was saying, he needed the HD bridge because he was using plugins and hardware inserts and stuff like that. So it needed to all sync up. So he needed that type of system with the radar converter. And then you've got Piper, who I think she has a totally different setup. So it'd be great to hear from her and how, you know, what her perspective is while we have her here.
Thanks, Mike. And yeah, thanks, Mark, for your help originally. Everybody can hear me okay? So, I don't know, for some folks that may not know me, I'm Piper. I'm a mastering engineer. I'm in the Nashville area, formerly from the San Francisco area for about 10 years. And then my wife and I moved out here about 5 years ago, and our entire world has changed in a really big way. But I'm a mastering engineer. I own this company called Nito Mastering. I'm in my studio now. And then Catherine, my wife, has an archival facility also just right across the room here. And she's got like 10 different sets of tape machines. And I
don't
also
know if your camera's on.
my camera?
Not sure your camera's on. Can you see her, Tony?
Yeah, I see her.
I can see me.
Oh, okay. It must be mine. Sorry.
We can see you,
Okay,
Mike,
good.
and we can see
I'll show
Piper.
you if everybody else
All right.
can see.
Sorry.
I don't want to make anybody seasick, but you can see how many tape machines and big giant speakers and stuff we have here in the room. But
So you're not doing the archiving though, Piper?
no, that's Catherine's world.
Okay.
I have for a long time, and I'm a huge tape enthusiast, of course. Make a lot of you know, a lot of recordings that go to and from tape, but I also own a vinyl manufacturing facility, and so here in Nashville. So all that to say, like I'm definitely in the physical realm, and also in mastering, you know, it's all about format conversion and never ever losing the quality of the sound as we take it from high res to vinyl, or high res to CD, or streaming, or tape to digital and out. And so obviously as a mastering engineer, it's really important for me to have very high quality converters. And I mean, over 15 years, I've used every type of converter you can think of. And about 7 years ago, settled on the sound of the Radar Ultra Nyquist converters. And that's what's been consistently in my chain the entire time since I found them. Actually started out with I bought a Radar 24, and I had a Radar 6, and I was like totally geeking out because I used to do a lot of location recording, and I just needed a really, really good recorder. And so I was one of those like younger folks that discovered Radar a little later in my career as an owner, but I had used them in studios for years before that. But I finally owned one, and I kept trying to figure out ways to use the Radar converters in my mastering chain somehow, because I just loved the sound of them. And, you know, I've got like, at this time I'm using like Vercasti and, you know, like, you know, Antelope, and we even had a Pacific set of Pacific Microsonics for years that, you know, we're using really, really high-end, high quality converters, Metric Halo for years as well. And I never really found the thing that made me not have to work around the sound of the converter. Even the highest quality converters, you know, we're talking $10,000 for 2 channels kind of thing, until I found the Radar. And so I started hot rodding my little Radar 24 to try and get it to use to be the front end for the console. And then I found out that there was a new project going on to build this thing called the Radar Studio. And then that never really worked quite right for me because I was really a lot more Mac based, but eventually I had an Ada 2 as my converters for my studio, and I was still using those for location recording as well. But all that to say, like, I've been around the radar world for a long, long time. And when I think it was Mike, maybe you were, or Dave, I can't remember who, or Paul, sorry, that let me know that you were working on this chassis for Dante. I was like, oh, thank God, now I can get rid of this like MADI to USB thing that I'm like dealing with over here. And like I've got like an SSL MADI card and a RME MADI USB interface, and like all this stuff that I'm just like constantly trying to just keep happy to be able to use this conversion. And so the Radar, the Dante converter has been sitting here right on my console, right next to my Mac Pro for 5 years now, almost 4 years. And it is something that I knew I would want to have and try out because it's silent. It's really easy to use. It's just one cable from the converter itself to the Mac. My stuff is really simple, so I'm in Reaper for mastering, for capture and playback, and then very simple sample rate conversion depending on what is needed, and then it's right back out the door. And so for me, I need something that's really reliable, that I'm not having to spend a ton of time troubleshooting. It just works, and I don't want to jinx myself. I'm gonna knock on wood here if possible. But every day I come down and sit at my console, and I pull up my sessions, and I just get my work done and get it out, and everybody's happy. And that to me is the most important thing. So, I've had quite a journey with the Radar fam and the IZ team, but with the Dante converter, I've got 16 channels of in and out. I only use 4 for playback and 2 for capture. So I joke that I wear out the first 4 channels of my converter. I don't think that's actually how it works, but yeah, I jotted down like a couple of other little notes just to talk about how it is really simple and it's really easy to use, but it was a little bit of a bear to get an understanding of how it's interfacing, and I don't think that's anything that Radar can necessarily control. It's just a Dante virtual sound card and Dante controller thing. But once you get an understanding of how that works, it's very straightforward and very simple. And for me, it was finding that there were little things that were giving me visual clues that something was or was not working. It was just really hard for me to understand what those clues were until Mark, walked me through, okay, this means it's working, or this means it doesn't see something. And it's just the same as learning any other technology. It's more of a language that you just have to learn the basics of, and then you can be fluent in it after some practice. So yeah, not sure what else to talk about, but like, other than the converter, I use it in a really simple way, just in and out of Reaper, and in that like just for playback from the computer to the amplifier to the speakers. But I do want to just make a quick comment about the journey that I've had with this company over the years. Not only do you guys make excellent products and you stand behind them and you support the shit out of them, but you also ask us, what is it that we can do better? What can we make that would be helpful to you? How do we build really great tools for engineers like you, or potentially, a wider audience? Because mastering engineers, although now it's like some kind of awesome, sexy thing to be a mastering engineer, not sure where that came from. But we do other things too, like tape transfers and playback. Like, I have recording needs for further than just using 4 channels for playback and 2 channels for capture. And that's why I think this tool is very flexible and pretty awesome. Have I missed anything?
That's great.
I have a question for you,
Yeah.
Piper. Kind of really off topic.
I think.
Why did you choose to use Reaper going through rather than some other DAW?
That's a great question, Tony. Thank you. I was using Soundblade, Sonic Studio Soundblade for years. We all know that as a one of the benchmark, mastering and editing systems, and just 2-channel recording, and source destination editing systems, just extremely high quality sound. And when the reason I'm in Reaper actually is kind of IV's fault. Because when I started on this journey, trying to use the radar converters, this was like years ago. This is not the radar converter that's sitting in front of me right now. I was trying to use this system that the previous owner had built, called the Radar Studio, and it was a PC-based system. And no matter what I did, none of the other DAWs were stable and working with that, like with Windows. The system and the computer itself was not the problem. It was that Microsoft and like trying to use Pyramix on it, or Sequoia, any of these other PC-based mastering programs that were like good enough sound-wise for me, but not like amazing. And then finally one day, Barry, not this Barry, but the other Barry, said, "Why don't you try this program called Reaper?" And I was like, "Oh, I've used that before. I know that," because we knew that it was just a really easy to use, pretty reliable system that was low impact on a computer. And so we were like, okay, well, let's just try that and troubleshoot this thing that way. And this is another example of a company that just, I have a really weird problem going on with my thing, and they were relentless in their customer support. It was amazing, because any other company, we've already named several of them on this call, would have just been like, yeah, that sounds like a you problem. Like, when you figure it out, maybe post it to the forum, or go complain on whatever online platform you want to talk about. But they really stuck with it. And when he was like, maybe check out this program and see if your problems persist, none of those problems were there, and it allowed me to just get right back to work. And then I did a ton of sound tests. I did a ton of blind listening tests with not just my assistant, but other folks at the studio, and it won every single time. The only thing it didn't win against was the original Soundblade, the original sound of Soundblade with the Pacific Microsonics converters, which is a very specific sound that can't really be matched today. So I'm very happy with it. And like I said, it just lets me get to work, lets me make really high quality masters. And I haven't really found a thing that I can't make it do or program around it.
That's pretty cool, because I can't think of too many pros. I know a lot of guys who are amateurs that use it, but you're the first pro I think I know who has used Reaper.
There are a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
Really. And I know it's like not the, like it's not necessarily known as the like industry standard,
Yeah.
but it's the thing that everyone, can fall back on when you're having a really weird problem. And once you start using it, just, not dissimilar to the DVS and Dante controller situation, where it's like, there's some things that look kind of weird in there when you open it up, but it's really just because the sky's the limit in a program like that. So it's just down to your own, your own understanding of how to use it and how to make it work for you. And it just, it takes a little bit of dedication to get started in it. But one cool thing about, this is not a Reaper commercial, I guess, but like one neat thing that I love about it is like, it'll do all the things that a mastering DAW should do. And also it will let me break up the, it does source destination editing. It does diskette want stuff. It'll generate a PQ sheet for me. It'll make a DDP for me. It has excellent conversion and sample rate conversion built into it. And one neat thing is that it did comping better than Pro Tools did, way before Pro Tools did. It did like you can break up the song into different pieces and then play back straight through without any glitches with different plugins on those chunks. Like, so I can affect verse and chorus slightly differently if I absolutely have to, and play back seamlessly straight through. And to this day, now being in Reaper for nearly 7 years, I have not had, knock on wood again, any lost sessions, any corrupted files, any issues with getting my work done. And I can't say that about any other workstation that I've spent time in.
That's pretty remarkable. Cool. Thanks, Piper.
Try it out sometime. Yeah, and if you ever need help, like call me and I can walk you through it if you ever want to see it run. And it's $60. Like it's $60. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I think the other thing to like, just not to go too far here, but the one question that you kind of touched on was that you use DVS, like Dante Virtual Sound Card, is how you connect right to your system, and that's just like one Ethernet cable or a dongle if you need an Ethernet dongle, and that's you're in, right?
Yeah.
And from there it's analog in and out. That's basically
it's not
it,
like
right?
and Dante controller and DVS, it's also for anybody that's never seen the software before, who here has used like the UA platform that has its own standalone client software to run the interface in and out of the DAW, who's used RME and their standalone mixer interface and communication in and out of those interfaces. There's the physical interfaces. There's like, you just have to remember that it's just another one of those. It's not scary. It's just a tool that you have to use to have the computer understand what it is the Dante converter is trying to say. And once it's running and stable, with Mark support if needed, you really don't have to screw around with it at all. Once in a while, you have to use it for changing sample rates. I'm mastering, so I'm capturing, I'm playing back. That's the other reason I use Reaper, Tony, is that I can play back seamlessly any sample rate. I can drag a file in and play out 96K from my pitch tracks, and then record back in and play back 96K on my capture and playback track. And it once I'm stable and the system is working at 96K, for instance, I'm not changing sample rates very often. I can see how sometimes if you are having to change sample rates a lot, it would be kind of annoying, because you kind of have to stop the thing, change the sample rate, reboot it, and then you're locked and everything's cool. But that's, again, not unlike having to have a dedicated Pro Tools session that opens and plays back the one specific sample rate. So my case is a little simple, but I also find that it is very flexible when I need it to be.
Very cool.
That's awesome. So
Yeah,
so I thought one person who has not had a lot of oh, sorry, Tony, it's your show, man. I'll just
No.
I'll back
I
up.
was saying thank you, Piper. But go ahead, Mike.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thanks. So Piper and similar to Aaron, had to suffer through some of my tech support early on. And Charles Yingling, our next guest here, he's actually great because he's using it for tracking. So he can talk about how that works for his system and, got things going. Happens to have a technical background too. So it's getting easier and easier for everybody as they ramp up to using this system. And so it'd be great to talk to Charles now if we're good to move on.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Charles Yingling here in Nashville. I'm in Berry Hill, out of the Blue Room Studios. We've been on radars since the late 90s, I guess. I came in to work with Brent Mayer and Nils Logan and some guys, and they were on Radar 2s forever. This room has had several Radar 24s, Radar 2s, up into the Radar 6 last year. And pretty much ran all our track sessions up until last year, full track sessions, just straight on the Radar. And then we would just transfer. We had FTP servers set up to transfer into Pro Tools. Eventually, I wired in AES mult connections through a Lynx system, so I could track to Pro Tools and Radar and tape at the same time. It was pretty complex, but it was fun. And then starting last year, I started to get more and more other engineers wanting to come in and work. Our setup was really unique with the Radar 6. I had it split to 12 channels in, 12 channels out through Link's PCIe card. Really, really low latency, which was great. So I could do a bit of tracking with that setup, but I only had 12 in, 12 out because the Radar 6 wouldn't do. It just didn't. It wasn't wired that way, like the converters. So I had to kind of split machines. And that was good for a while. Again, until lately, people bringing in loads of tracks to overdub to. Hey, I want drums, but I'm bringing in 40 tracks, but I want the strings laid out on the console. So I was like, oh crap, I have 12 in and 12 out. I need more channels. And that's when I had started researching the radar converters, which I have an IT background, and I know Dante pretty decent from some live sound stuff, so it wasn't intimidating. And I knew that the cards were microsecond, like 250 microsecond latency built in. So I was like, okay, I can do this. And this year we needed a studio computer upgrade. We needed all sorts of upgrades anyway. So basically my system now is a Radar 32 IO converters. We just got the Focusrite PCIe NX card. We're running a Mac Studio, 32 gig memory, 16 core, which is great. And then the PCIe NX into a Sonnet box, which is Thunderbolt. So it's pretty simple with the radars. We just ran a session last month with a new artist here in town where we had a full track session running. That one was 48K, lowest buffer setting on Pro Tools Studio. We're kind of a risky room, so I'm like, let's just try it without HDX. And it went great. And you could go out there and sing on a mic, and the latency through the Pro Tools system was negligible. I've used musicians that I use all the time, and I said, let me know if you hear anything odd, because we're running Pro Tools Studio with, basically, I think we looked at 34 samples was our software latency in and out. And then again, the PCIe card was 250 microseconds. So I knew based on the math, it wasn't going to be over 2 milliseconds. And it went great. We did 20 songs in about 3 days and didn't bat an eye. And I was able to track with Pro Tools Studio. And so I'd say about half my work in here is analog mixing. We don't use hardware inserts. We're basically in and out. So, we could use DVS, but I don't. So the other system we have set up here is an Apogee 2x6 SE for mastering. And it's pretty wild. The other day I did a session where I was using that under the aux.io setup with Pro Tools. And I could kind of go back and forth on my playback system between the radar converters and the Apogee, which was, you could notice a few things, which was pretty wild. I still track all over town at different studios. I've been a radar guy since 2002 because every time I feel like I'm fighting things every time I'm in another room, whether it's the HDX or Burl or anything that I've kind of been told gets closer to radar, but it doesn't. We did use the 96K, the classic cards forever in here, and then switched to the Ultra Nyquist, and I didn't notice anything that bugged me or made it, me want to go back to the classics. And definitely the Ultra Nyquist was closer to some stuff I'd worked on in other rooms, so that was nice. But yeah, we've got up to 78 Trident in here that I still use. And usually we put together 4 to 5 piece tracking bands. I've got a few sessions next week. And it seems to be going smooth so far. And then hooking it up was easy. Basically had a Netgear switch, plugged in the radars, plugged in my Sonnet box, and Thunderbolt into the Mac Studio. And everything was self-assigned IPs. And it just worked. Again, switching sample rates. We always had a master clock, or I always used radar for my master clock. So switching sample rates was always kind of something I did manually anyways in here. I never let the session control it. So, and it only takes, about The PCIe in X card takes a little longer, ironically, than the card that you guys had, the PCIe R. I don't know why, but it takes about a minute for everybody to kind of be happy with each other and talk. But that could just be kind of a new OS bug. We're on the latest OS on Mac and Pro Tools 2024. So, but other than that, it's been great. And again, we went from tape to radar and never did go. I've never gone to HDX, so we've pretty much stayed between those two converter fields since the late 90s. Yeah,
I think part of why I was excited to have you part of this, Charles, was that you were talking about the waveforms and all that other stuff that you touched on, that you work with other gear. I mean, you didn't mention some of the studios that you've worked in, like you said, Blackbird, right? You go there often.
Yeah, we do a lot of tracking there, and Soul Train is another room around here we use. They've got two completely different setups. I'll speak into the waveform thing. It was interesting. I was over at Soul Train, and I don't know, they have the Burl setup, which is great, and an SSL, and I was pushing it pretty hard, and I on the inputs, and I noticed, on the drums, like the snare had Cromwell in, and the snare drum was bugging me, and I asked one of the engineers, like, what's going on, why? And I started zooming into the waveform, and it's squaring off almost. It was like, and he's like, oh, that's that, hit the input transformer, that's the thing. And I was like, I don't like that thing. And on my radars, you could always, I just monitor my console VUs, that's it. And if I wanted to put, especially the classic cards, if I wanted to push it up closer, you'd zoom in and they still look like nice round, nothing squared off at the top. So that's when I basically made the decision, because we were considering in here some other interfaces. Because again, I had the Radar 6. I wasn't able to use it as much, but I have all these great cards. But do I go and spend $30K on a new rig that I know is either Pro HD or something? And experiencing other rooms, that's when it got me back to the Radar sound that I've not been able to match anywhere, especially tracking really dynamic music, where in the middle of a song you'll go from 20-30 dB swings on percussion and drums, and the Radar converters always just take it and nothing changes sonically, and that's what I want. I don't want something to change because I'm hitting input transformers now a lot hotter on a drum kit.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Over to you, Tony. Any other questions, or anybody else?
I think Roxanne had some questions. Roxanne, our resident studios, had some questions. We were going to do some Q&A at the end here. If you check the chat, I think you'll see those people there.
Can I throw in a couple of quick comments while you're looking at the chat?
Go for it.
Just because we've been talking a lot about the sample rate changing, and I just want to mention that one of the things I like about the Dante sample rate changing is if I open up a Pro Tools session, it's the wrong sample rate, you just don't get any sound. It's not like there's any crazy noises, there's nothing weird, and you're just like, oh, have to change the sample rate. You switch it, a few seconds later, you got sound. So that's one of the things I really appreciate about the Dante thing. Also, I've had times when things get unplugged by accident. Nothing freaks out. You just plug it back in and it starts working again. So those are the couple of the real positives I like about the Dante system.
Maybe we can get to the Q&A right away here.
I do have a question, if this is an appropriate.
Go for it, Craig.
Hey, so thanks for inviting me to this. I have a little bit of history with Radar. I was the digital product manager with Otari, responsible for the release of the Radar 1 and the Radar 2. And then sat in a pickup truck with Barry Henderson and decided we were going to start IS Technology. So I was one of the founding members of IS. And my question primarily is sort of a niche question as far as what the primary market that this is being aimed for, as far as, like, currently I'm using the Universal Audio 8 XP. So is this device the intention to be a replacement for other devices such as the Apollo, or is it designed to be used alongside of these other products that people may already be, you know, in bed with? So I understand, of course, with
Yeah,
the
no,
with the Apollo, I'd have to use a you know, a bridge to speak with Dante. But would the Apollo then become an add-on to the radar, or the radar an add-on to the Apollo, or neither? That's my question.
yeah. Well, I think I'm going to answer this in two parts with two different people. So, so I'll answer the who it's made for. It's kind of interesting. I think every piece of studio gear that stands the test of time does one thing and does it well. And that was really the main ethos of what we were trying to do. You know, can you use the cards that we know and love? Can you just get audio in and out of it? And will it work with, you know, how I want to work, as opposed to us trying to, you know, tell you how to do it. So so because it's modular, if someone's just starting out, or, you know, just only needs 8 IO, like Piper was saying, she's got 16, but she uses 4. You can start with one card and one chassis, and, you know, you can be mixing and mastering. You can record if you've got like a mixer. And then, you know, 16 channels, we were talking to one of the guys who runs Little Mountain Sound here in Vancouver. And he was saying 16 is like the bare minimum for pro tracking, right? So that's the chassis like that. And then because it can fit in a 1 rack unit, you know, you can get 32 IO. The other thing about 16 is we found mastering, Atmos mastering, people who have matrices who want to do Atmos mixing and mastering, they found that, you know, if you just plug this thing in, you get the converter upgrade. One mastering engineer referred to the sort of standard ones that come in these boxes as being kind of smeary. Whereas when you're hearing this, we had amazing feedback. A guy from DPA was tracking drums, and he's like, when you go back to it, Paul Andrews is his name, and he was saying, it's the first time that I'm listening to an Atmos mix, and I can point to where the hi-hat and the snare were when I recorded them, you know? So that's an exciting realm. So again, it does one thing, but you can plug into it in a variety of different ways. And in terms of your specific hardware, I think the best person to answer that one is Mark, which is
Just don't like it in the workplace.
So
As far as the hardware
Mark
goes,
Kochi,
yeah. So I think that to answer your question, I guess, is it an add-on, or is it its own device? The conversion is what you're buying. The sound of IZ converters. So if you have an Apollo, or maybe an Apollo's not the best example just because it's not a Dante device, but if let's say you had a Matrix Studio, which has some conversion on it, you could add that as additional conversion. But the sound and what it is using the word is, the converter. And so it's really its own thing that you wouldn't necessarily want to add to another device because it's a completely separate converter. But yes, you can. Let's say you wanted 16 channels of this conversion, but you have a ton of other IO, you're feeding headphone monitors, whatever. Yes, it can be in addition to another converter. But I think Mike would agree that what you're selling here is the sound of radar in a different interface. And you, having been one of the people who was originally with the company, knows that it is this sonic footprint that's the sound.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so if you're going, I mean, you need, like I was saying earlier, you need to get in and out of your DAW somehow. whether it be with you're using an Apollo, whether you're using the Focusrite NX card, or whatever bridge to do it. It needs to speak to this converter via Dante.
And also, I mean, some people, Craig, you also asked about like if who this is being, marketed to, and if it would replace the Apollo. I mean, those interfaces are, they have integrate, mic pre's and other, monitoring things on them. This is a set of converters and a damn good one for the money, but I don't know that's going to necessarily replace all the rest of the features on something like the Apollo. But I would use it, if I could replace those converters, if I had to, or if I had like an Apollo and a radar, and I needed to record something, I'd either have like a standalone mic pre of some sort and go in and out of the radar converter, but it's not going to be something that you can just plug in a microphone to.
Thanks, Piper. And Mike, can you answer some of these questions in the Q&A right now? So we have, maybe you could post the price and mention how many channels. When you just gave the price, you didn't say how many channels each card. Would you also answer these kind of questions now?
So I'll do that.
Not after the Zoom
I did
meeting. I don't want it in print. I want it right now. Right now, Mike.
Yep. No, for sure. So the converter, I'll type it in. So the converter chassis, just the chassis with the Dante connectivity, is 2,800, and then the sound cards are 8 channels each. So and each converter takes 2 cards. So this is like in and out in one row here, going backwards. So this chassis takes 16 channels of radar, so two sound cards. So if you're getting classic 96 cards, or it's an 8-channel card, in and out.
Yeah, I got that. I have that box
19.
right here, Mike. I already showed that on my camera. Now that is the analog in and out for 16. It's got a Cat5 cable and such.
Yep.
What else do I need to get into Pro Tools, for example? What else?
To get into regular Pro Tools, the most economical solution is this new Focusrite card.
And that costs how much? How much does that cost?
I think it's 13 something, the last I saw.
And
that'll give you low latency. But so if you're working with Pro Tools, like I think, well, that's basically what Charles is using in his studio in Nashville.
All right. I just want to get like brass tacks, just kind of like stay on point for me. Just so that box that I showed on my camera, that 16 in and out, you can externally clock it. It has a well, preferably Cat 6 cable connector on the back, right?
Yep.
And that goes to where? Where does that go?
It would go into your computer Ethernet port, or if you need a gigabit Ethernet to, USB or a Thunderbolt dongle. And then, so you would also go, there's one cable that goes into your computer and one cable that goes to the radar converter from the interface.
What is a radar converter? What is a radar converter? You're using these shorthand and all these terms. I don't know what a radar converter is.
Yeah, the box that you have is a radar converter.
That's an A to D box. Okay. And that okay. And the Cat5 goes in your computer. Then what else do we need? We need this bridge you were talking about. Don't need somebody shaking their head. You don't need that. See, this is why I'm kind of pushing you on this, because there's an awful lot of terms and everything that you guys are using. And, oh yeah, it works great. And I'm here in Nashville, blah, blah, blah. I want to know what the system is, please.
Can I jump in for a second, Mike?
Well, yeah, sure, Mark. You go ahead.
So I think it comes down to, Barry, is what you want your system to be able to do. If you want, so the box they sell is a 8 or 16 channel A to D, D to A simultaneous converter that interfaces via Dante. That's all it does. It does 16 channels in, 16 channels out. in conversion.
I know
If you
that
have a-
already. I know that already.
if
Thank
have
you.
right. So if you have a room that you're just strictly mixing, you're playing back and you want a converter, all you need is this box with cards and an Ethernet cable between your computer and the box. And
What
you
is
need
the card? You say card? See, there's another time you just use this word like we already know all this stuff. You said card. What card?
I said you just need a cable between the interface, the converter, and the computer. That's it. One cable.
Thank you. See,
If
we're
you want to track,
already out of time. I'm trying to push in this because we're out of our hour limit with this. See,
Barry,
and
these were questions that I asked the guys as well when we first started talking about this. So I
Yeah.
already have a set of Ultra Nyquist cards. I had a set of 16 channels worth. So the card just refers to the thing that takes the D sub connection and will do your in and out. So you see on here where Mike's holding this up, you see and you have this on the one that's sitting in front of you too.
okay,
So
this is brand new. This is a brand new
that's-
picture
so
here.
that's the card, and I used to have that that's the same exact thing that would have gone into like the old radar recording systems as well. So those were like a standalone computer.
And that's 8 in
all
and
we're
8 out.
doing-
Yeah, 8 in and 8 out.
Correct. 8 in and 8 out per. Yep. And so you can put up to 2 of those in each of these half size rack things, and you can put them together into one rack unit to make 32 channels worth of in and out. When you're at the Ultra Nyquist 192 card, that's what we're talking about. Each of those 8 channels is $2,500. And the chassis itself, the Dante or the radar converter, which is the thing that your Cat 6 cable plugs in and out of to get to your computer or to get to any other like interface you need to go to other applications. So like I have my mastering computer.
I got it. Look, I don't need all
so I can plug.
How much is that? How much is that box, Piper?
Yep.
Do you know? I was kind of
$2,800 for the box.
Yeah, I was wanting Mike to just tell us what
or
these numbers are.
$1,500
People
for
are
the
asking
converter.
these questions. I don't need all the background. I just want to know what the stuff costs.
Barry, I can't see you. I can't see if you are hearing me or not. So where I'm at is for the Ultra Nyquist card, which is the highest quality card, it's $2,500. Or you can go with the classic card, which some people prefer, and it's $19.95. That's per 8 channels, and then the chassis itself to hold those cards and to get to the Cat 6 connection to your computer is $2,800. So to get 8 channels, it's around $5,500.
And Mike has got this put into the
Yep,
into
and
the
it's also
chat.
on the internet as well. You can find this information on the radar recording website.
Yeah, he's got it on the
There
chat.
are other little things that are needed sometimes, like, maybe you're an audiophile and you want like a gold Cat 6 cable, or you want some cable lifters to go from your computer, from your D subs to your amplifiers, like me. I've got all these extra BS things, and my Tibetan bell actually that was hanging over in the corner that gives all the good energy in the room, and that is very expensive. I can't tell you how much that was.
All right. Thank you, Charles, Mark, Mike, Piper. Who else did I miss? Thank you all, everyone. We're out of time. But thank you so much. And Mike, send me the information. I'll be able to send it out to everybody and post it up. And thanks everybody for coming. And
Thanks, Tony.
we'll see you again soon. All right. Take care, y'all. Thanks so much.
Bye all.